Hey everybody, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Hannah.
And this is Love at First Fright. Happy New Year!
It's 2024.
Yep.
Welcome.
Welcome in, everyone. It's 2024, and I'm entering the year not feeling well.
It's a good omen, I think.
They don't talk about that.
Yeah. It's kind of a reverse psychology thing of get it out of the way.
If you get sick exactly at midnight or after midnight on January 1st, it's like a gremlin situation where you
multiply?
No, you
okay.
get better.
Oh.
It's the opposite gremlin situation.
It's sort of the anti-gremlin.
I'm an anti-gremlin. Yeah. I don't feel like an anti-gremlin.
Well, I'm sorry that you're feeling bad.
It's okay. I've had so much tea and medicine to keep me going. Yep. I feel like I'm propped up on DayQuil. Anyway, it's the new year. We haven't talked to you guys since before Christmas.
Yeah, we just, finished celebrating Christmas, doing our gift exchange, seeing our families.
Yeah, I hope everyone had a good Christmas if you celebrate, and if you don't, but you had time off,
even better.
I hope you just got to chill.
Yeah, I hope you did jack all.
And honestly, whatever you did, I hope it was fun, or, just you kind of vibed, whatever. Yeah. You just felt good for the whole thing.
The vibe of this well wishes, that's basically, it has the same energy as sorry that happened.
Yeah.
Or
I haven't talked to you guys in 2 weeks, so I'm sorry that happened to you, or that's great.
That's great. I ain't reading all that.
You're killing it out there, champ.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like garbage. But I did want to just really briefly, because this was very exciting for me over Christmas. I got a couple of things that I really wanted to kind of highlight for everybody, just because I thought they were really cool and really thoughtful and really nice. My parents got me this make your own collage set of horror movie art and posters, so they're postcard size pieces of paper that all have crazy cool artworks. There was a Nightmare on Elm Street one that looks like a comic book cover.
Yeah, that one was really cool.
They have there was The Exorcist, and it was just the movie poster, but then there was other ones that weren't the movie poster. It was just art.
Yeah. Which
is really cool. I have to find somewhere to put that. And then you got me two really cool things. One of them was a cat calendar, but the cats are in horror movies, a horror movie rendition of it. It's all hand-drawn art. It's really, really cool. So there's one of The Shining, but instead of Wendy's.
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, Wendy and Jack's face. His name's Jack in the movie, too.
Did that just came together for you?
Holy crap.
This is changing a lot.
Do you think when they were on set and somebody he was standing by Crafty and they were where's Jack? And he was like, are you talking to me or the character?
It sounds like something he'd do.
But yeah, instead of their faces, it's cats.
It's cats, yeah.
It's really funny. It's really good. It's all hand-drawn art, and I get to look at it 12 times a year. Well, more than that. I'm going to look at the calendar more than 12 times.
You only look at the calendar once a month.
I got to memorize everything.
To memory and move on. Lock it in the drawer. Yeah. If anyone wants to check it out, shout out to the small business Becca by Hand Studio.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. I didn't know who made it, but you did. So.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoy the calendar.
It's super cool.
I'm getting it put. All three of these things are wall art that I have received.
Unfortunately, your parents.
So I have to figure out where I'm putting all of this stuff and rearrange the office. But the last thing that I got, and this is probably the most exciting thing that I got, was one of those posters. I don't know if everyone's familiar with, but the 100 greatest movies of all time kind of posters where it's a scratch off thing. It's like that, but it's horror movies, 100 greatest horror movies of all time. And it's really cool. I already got to scratch off a third of them, and then we counted, and you've seen 60 90% of the ones that are on there.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. There was like a lot of them, like Saw and Jaws and The Shining and all that stuff's on there. It was really fun just like going through and being like, oh, I've seen that. Oh, I haven't seen that. I need to add that to the list, which is, I think, one of the reasons it's really exciting because it's like an interactive thing. I get to go back and do this every time I watch one of these.
And now we've got a little list to work through.
Yeah, I've got other ones I can add too. Like I haven't seen The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, which is surprising because I love Jeff Goldblum and I've known about the movie. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah,
anyway,
we'll get around to it.
Did you get anything you want to talk about?
I didn't get any horror movie stuff.
Yeah, I know, which is weird.
Actually, the only horror movie related thing I got this year was from my workplace does a gift exchange. And this year we did like a sock exchange specifically, and the person who gave me these socks that have words written on them, and it says, "I'd rather be watching horror movies." And she also included a little Christmas ornament that has Michael Myers on it with a Santa hat. And it says, he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. So that was really fun and cute. And this is a somewhat new position for me. So kind of cool that they had like already, I guess I just radiate that energy. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm always grateful for my presents. Got a lot of fun and cool and practical stuff. So it was a good time.
Yeah.
Hopefully you had a good Christmas too.
If you celebrate, I hope you had a good one. But anyway, enough about us.
Let's get into
and more about our opinions on things.
So less about us, segue into more about us.
More about us.
Yes, but this week, as you probably can tell, we are discussing The Ritual.
Yeah.
Woo.
The Ritual.
It's a 2017 horror movie. Mm-hmm. It did have a theatrical release in the UK, but then Netflix bought the rights, so it's listed as a Netflix original. And that's how we watched it. We watched it on Netflix.
I'm imagining how that went down was during the theatrical release, there was a guy, Mr. Netflix, was in a theater.
Jim Netflix,
the only surviving Netflix brother.
Yeah.
After the accident.
Yeah.
He was in a theater. And it's the Leonardo DiCaprio meme
with the pointing.
Yeah, like he's seeing the movie and he's really digging it, and then he's just like
that one.
He's like, I gotta get this.
Give me that.
So he
in
bought
every
the rights.
Color.
Yes.
Yep.
Anyway.
It's a fun movie. It's adapted from a book of the same name written by Adam Neville. Mm-hmm. I've never read the book. I would like to add some of Adam Neville's. I like to read as well.
I don't. I'm not a nerd.
I only read horror books and weird morbid nonfiction about political intrigue and crime, but I think I'm going to add him to my list because I liked this. And it was adapted into the screenplay by Joe Barton and directed by David Bruckner. Some people might be familiar with David Bruckner. He did The Night House the last couple years, which is another movie I really liked. I don't think you saw that.
No, but I feel like I recognize the title.
You might have been filtering in and out when I watched it. It was on HBO at some point. Or Max, or whatever they're calling it.
It's about a house at night.
Yeah, that's part of it. Oh, okay. That's an element. Yeah, he also, I think, did some of the VHS anthology where they have, those little short things. Yep. I think he was involved in that as well.
Hopefully not the first one.
I don't know which one. I just, I just saw that was part of his filmography. But yeah, he's, pretty exciting stuff coming out from him. So hopefully he keeps working on horror movies. And a pretty good cast as well. The kind of lead of the film is Rafe Spall. And it was really funny because at the end of the movie, you were like, where do I know him from?
Yeah, the whole movie I'm watching this, I'm like, I know this guy.
Yeah.
I've seen him in other things.
Yes.
And I can't place it. I'm enjoying watching this, but I can't place where I know this guy from.
And then I said, I can identify him for you in one quote. And it was, "You've got red on you."
Yes.
Because Rafe Spall, he was in Shaun of the Dead. He was in all the Cornetto trilogy movies, actually.
He played one of the one of the cops in Hot Fuzz, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's kind of the lead, but it's a small cast.
Yeah, very small.
It mostly focuses on these 4 characters, but the other guys, they were less well known to me. Rafe Spall is playing the character Luke. The character Hutch is played by Robert James Collier.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he was in Downton Abbey. I had never seen that, but I think that's what he's most well known for. And then there is Sam Trofton or Trodden. I'm not sure exactly how you say his last name. He played the character Dom. He was in Alien vs. Predator, did some other stuff. And then the one I was least familiar with was the gentleman who played Phil. His name is Arshur Ali.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was looking him up because I was like, what's he been in before? Apparently he's more of a stage actor. I guess he's like one of the lead performers for the Royal Shakespeare Company or something, which is wild.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. He was really great in this, so hopefully he gets more film work because I thought he had really good performance.
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of the major cast and crew.
Yeah.
Pretty good group. I also wanted to let y'all know that this was a listener suggestion, so thank you so much for sending in your recommendations.
Yeah.
We're creating a little list and going to work our way through them, so keep them coming.
Yeah, we slotted this one in, and I'm glad that we did.
So I thought what might be helpful, because this is a more, recent movie, maybe people haven't seen it, so I thought I might do like a quick and dirty plot summary for anyone who's unfamiliar, and then we can kind of dive into, our specific thoughts, standout moments later on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about with this.
So I think the major plot points that would be good to know. It's following a friend group.
Yep.
It's 5 guys. The characters...
Not the burger restaurant.
Not the burger chain. I heard it as soon as I said it.
Went to take a sip of tea, and you said 5 guys, and I was like, hold on. There's no burgers in this.
The burgers are not related. 5
fellas.
5 fellas. It's the 4 that I already discussed, which was Luke, Phil, Hutch, and Dom, and then they have a 5th friend named Rob.
Yep.
And they are planning their annual guys trip, throwing out suggestions. But unfortunately, that same night, Luke and Rob stumble sort of by accident into a robbery in progress at a liquor store.
Yeah.
And Rob ends up being murdered because he doesn't give up his valuables. And Luke walks out unscathed.
Yep.
And it's quite shocking. And then there's just kind of this hard cut to 6 months later.
Yep.
The 4 surviving guys are on a hiking trail in Sweden, and they are basically decided to do this hiking trip in honor of Rob because it was his suggestion to do a hiking trip, even though the rest of them weren't necessarily into it, but they want to do it for him.
Right, yeah, it's a immemorial thing for him.
And, everything's been going fine until Dom ends up getting injured.
Yep.
And so they decide that they're going to steer off of the path, the trail, and they're going to take this shortcut through the forest because there's a lodge that's going to be their final destination. And as they enter the forest and start getting deeper in, there's something not right about this place, of course.
It's your classic, people get trapped in the woods scenario.
Yes.
They start seeing a bunch of, weird stuff going on, animals strung up from trees and, creepy runes carved in those same trees, abandoned houses with creepy stuff in it. They kind of wander through there and end up eventually getting, picked off one by one.
Yes, they start dying off. They're being sort of hunted by something.
Yeah.
They get picked off until there's just 2 of them remaining. It's Dom and Luke.
Yeah.
And they think they're going into safety. They find this, cabin with fire and signs of life.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the people that they come across worship this monster of the forest.
Yeah.
And they are basically going to sacrifice Dom.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not the, good situation that they had hoped for. Luke does end up being the sole survivor of the film. He makes it out of the situation. He fights against this, monster and manages to make it out of the forest. severely traumatized, but alive. And, you know, I think one thing that is kind of important to know about the movie, that's the major story.
Yeah.
But it's very much, it is a monster movie. It's a Lost in the Woods movie, but there's also a lot of discussion of like grief and trauma.
There's an abstract kind of like meaning and horror to it as well, which is really appreciated and cool. To kind of see what they do with it. Yeah, I mean, I think from some of the things we've said already, I don't think it's any surprise to say that you and I both really liked this movie.
I really enjoyed it. I was sad I hadn't gotten around to it sooner.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because it is one of those movies, like I've had Netflix for forever, and I kept seeing this movie come up.
Oh, yeah.
Kept seeing it pop up and it being recommended to me and being like, I'll watch it at some point.
Yep.
And I never got around to it. Yeah. And then finally, because we decided to do this show and somebody put it on our radar as a suggestion, we finally pulled the trigger and went to watch it. And I don't regret it.
No,
it is a really, really good movie.
I would recommend checking it out, especially if you like, you know, that kind of Lost in the Woods, supernatural horror stuff.
Yeah.
If you are like me and you just love to eat up a metaphor for grief in your horror, it's my favorite. It works on me every time.
Or if you just like watching, you know, several adults run around in the woods and scream at each other because they're mad.
Just men.
Somebody doesn't know how to read a compass or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
That's also good.
Yeah.
It's got a little something for everybody in there. But yeah, so I guess we should talk about some of the stuff that we really liked from it. Some of our like standout, you know, scenes and everything like that.
What comes to mind for you?
So you talked briefly about it with the opening of the movie, and I thought that was really good just as like a tone setting thing because it really does catch you off guard, right? Like you start this movie up and there's 5 guys hanging out in a pub.
Yeah, they're just dudes being men.
Yeah, and they're just kind of like, you know, messing with each other and joking around and discussing where they're going to go on their, you know, lad's holiday. Eventually, they get to the liquor store where the robbery takes place, and Rob refuses to give up his stuff while Luke, you know, goes and hides.
Luke is hiding,
from the robbers in there, and the robbers end up beating and killing Rob to get his valuables, and it's kind of jarring when that happens because like everything up to that point you're kind of like, well, how do they even get to the hike? Like I know this is a movie about them getting lost in the woods. How do they even get to that? Because like they're all talking about, well, we don't want to go do that. I mean, even in the liquor store, Luke is telling Rob, he's like, you don't really want to go do that. That sounds boring. And then this happens, and he gets hit across the face, and he's this massive gash, and he's like being stabbed, and it's
really upsetting.
Yeah, it's really upsetting. It's really bloody, and then we cut to 6 months later, and Luke's coming out of a tent.
Yep.
And like, you know, the cold open wilderness and you're just like, whoa, that came out of nowhere. And I just thought it was really cool to do that and kind of as a very clear motivation as to why these characters are going to do that, even though basically all of them were like, we don't want to go hiking.
Right.
The memorial scene was really good. It was kind of funny because when they're all taking sips out of the flask.
Yeah.
And it gets all the way back around to Phil, and he pours one out.
Yeah.
And it's like a comically long time.
I thought that too, and I was like, damn, you're like really wasting.
Yeah, like, we can all have a second sip.
Yeah, do another round. I noticed that too.
I also love when they finally get into the woods itself. In between like the memorial and then the woods, I think is kind of the slowest part of the movie.
Yeah.
But it's all build up, right? It's kind of that slow build up to this stuff.
I mean, even when they get into the woods, you know, it's still like it doesn't just pop off right away.
Yeah.
There's kind of a build, and you know, there's sort of that feeling of, you know, is this a good idea? Oh, we're just nervous and tired, you know, like just keep going. And I think that's really effective because it felt very human how they responded to these sort of increasingly strange and scary situations.
Yeah, I think another really cool aspect about it is the characters all felt like dynamic and like they had depth and everything. Dom was a character that you just kind of hate for, you know, a good portion of the movie, and you kind of feel where he's coming from, but also think maybe his words are a little harsh at certain points. Right. The way that they do the cinematography of the shots, and this is one of the things that like we talked about after we finished watching it, was they keep doing this where they keep going back to the scene in the liquor store, but when they revisit it, it's like mixed between what we originally saw and then where they are in the woods. Right. So like it'll be the whole liquor store, but the floor is like the forest floor, or later it's just the shelf or whatever.
It's got like fluorescent lights hanging
from the canopy and everything.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They do a lot of that kind of psychological stuff of like dreams and hallucinations, which I think is, you know, just another element to it being about grief and, you know, all those emotions of everything like coming to a head in this highly stressful and traumatic situation.
Yeah, I think it's really just, I think a lot of the decisions that they made to make it pretty clearly a metaphor about grief and dealing with that, but then also just being able to read it as just like a scary movie with like a monster thing is really, really good. Like there's just some genuinely really cool shots in this.
Yeah, there's some creepy stuff for sure.
I want to celebrate the fact that they don't really show the monster until towards the very end, and then when they do show it, like a lot of the times it's silhouetted. Yeah. Or like certain aspects of it you can't see fully. And so it's hard to like really put it all together in your mind.
It still maintains that air of mystery even when it's on screen.
Yeah, which I think was a really good decision because this thing is supposed to be like a Norse god.
Yes. What did you say they said? Jotun?
A Jotun.
Jotun.
Which I think is like, it's like a giant kind of a thing. Most of my knowledge of this comes from playing the God of War video game. And
so you're an expert.
I'm an expert, basically. But like Jotuns, I think, are giants, but like also descended from like gods and stuff like that.
They get into more of its background, like this group that worships it. It's like offspring of Loki or something like that.
Some crazy thing.
It lives in these woods, and there's this weird kind of cult that worships it and you know, brings it people. But I did really love the appearance of the monster. I loved that it wasn't just like it was such a strange combination of human and animal elements. And
it was just the really right amount of all of the different things they mashed together that it felt, even when you see the whole thing, that it felt wrong. Yes. You know what I mean? Like the front of it being like, it has human arms. And there's like a sunken in face in there with these yellow eyes, but you can't see any of it because it's shrouded in darkness.
You don't really see its features. Yeah. But like its whole like major body almost looks like a giraffe, like with long legs and like big neck and all this stuff. It's very hard to wrap your mind around, which I think really added to the fear factor of it. Yeah. Because there is kind of something, I think one of the reasons why showing the monster sometimes backfires is that once you see it, you know what you're up against now.
Exactly.
You're like, that's just a fucked up dog or whatever.
Right, exactly.
But in this case, if I saw that thing...
Yeah, I mean, we see the whole thing, and I'm still like, I don't know what I'd do against that. That's a big-ass
what am I gonna do
deer
against that?
Giraffe thing with human hands.
Giraffe man wizard.
Yeah, and everything that I've been told up to this point is it's a god. Yes. So like, what am I gonna do against that? Nothing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, you definitely feel I think a lot of the lead up until you get to sort of the climax with this cult group and everything. Yeah. I think it does a really effective job of like, it is survival horror because it's not only that there's this monster in the woods, there's also just the fact that like they're freaking lost and they don't know where they are and they don't have the right supplies for this. They have a person who is injured and they can't do anything about it. So you feel the stress of all of that. It's not even just that there's a thing that wants to kill them in the woods. It's like even if there wasn't a thing, they might die. Yeah. Because like they're just lost in the woods. Like if you remove all of the supernatural stuff from it, it just becomes like these guys are lost in the woods. Yeah. It's kind of a crazy So you feel
situation.
Really like they just seem so vulnerable,
yeah.
you know, which I think is very scary when you have just normal people. They don't have, you know, special skills or training. They're just trying to survive in a scary situation.
Yeah, I think when that all kind of comes to a head is a really good moment. When they are all lost in the woods and like stuff has been happening.
Yeah.
And Dom and Luke kind of get into a big fight because they had kind of been making fun of Dom. They make fun of him for being like a heavier guy, but like you and I both watched this movie, and I think anybody that watches this would be like, that's an average looking guy.
Yeah, that's just any guy.
Like I guess compared to the other three, he's bigger than them.
Well, he's like, you know, he's the married with kids, and he's kind of soft and cushy, and
but
you know, whatever.
They keep making fun of him for being like when he gets injured, and like he's making a bigger deal of it than it actually is. And I actually don't think he is, because we do get to see the injury.
Yeah, later on, and it looks messed up.
It's pretty messed up, and it's not getting better.
Yeah.
But they're making fun of him for that, and he needs to rest. But they don't want to, because like they've already seen so much messed up stuff.
They just want to get out.
So they're just trying to get out, and they tell him you need to push through the pain, and he finally like snaps and goes off on Luke, and they fire back and forth at each other, where Luke's like, you know, we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for you, to Dom, and then Dom fires back and says, no, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Because he blames Luke for Rob dying in the thing. Now, whether or not he actually blames him is, you know, you could debate that. It could just be he's frustrated, he's hurt, he's scared, so he's just saying stuff and lashing out. But you really feel when that moment happens, because Luke responds, and I think this was like just masterclass in how he responded. He's like, no, what? Like he wants to deal with this now, and they have like a big friend breakup and everything, and he ends up talking to Hutch about it and being like, do you think that? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because Hutch is like, I'm in survival mode, man. I just want to get out of here. I don't care who's responsible for what.
Yeah.
But
it's really very, like, that interaction is so brutal between the two of them, because Dom just like won't lay off.
No,
like,
he goes
there's a point where Luke like goes over kind of almost to threaten to like punch him.
Yeah.
And Luke is like, oh, now you have some fight in you. And it's like, what a low blow.
Yeah, he just like keeps going in on him.
It's just brutal.
And this is after we've like, all four of them have woken up from horrendous nightmares, which I did a little bit of digging. Apparently the nightmare that Dom is having is what happens later to him, and that was mind-blowing for me. I was like, holy shit, he just saw himself be killed by his own wife?
Yeah.
What? That's crazy, dude.
It was the nightmare stuff was really spooky, and again really added to it, because we primarily see this movie, like, even though it's an ensemble cast, we're really seeing things from Luke's perspective. Like, we see Luke's dreams, but we don't see anybody else's dreams.
Yeah.
So there's kind of all this unspoken other stuff happening to his, you know, companions. And that's also really scary, because, like, there's a point where Hutch literally, he's a grown man, wakes up, he has peed on himself.
Yeah, he's peed on himself.
He was so terrified, genuinely, that he just wet the bed.
Yep.
And it's really scary to think about that, of like, I can't really imagine waking up from a nightmare bad enough where I would have wet myself.
Literally
like,
screaming like bloody murder. And
so
then when you get up.
what must that be?
Yeah,
you know?
It's crazy. I think they did just a wonderful job of actually making you feel like the characters in this were scared.
Yes.
And also how they react to certain events. Because the first of them to get picked off is Hutch.
Yeah.
They end up finding his body after he gets taken, strung up in a tree. Like, also very gruesome. Similarly to how when they first like come into the woods, they find pretty shortly thereon an elk that has been like strung up. I've seen some debate saying that this is actually shapeshifting, and that is actually the god that has done that. I don't know, but whatever. But it's all bloody and stuff, and they find Hutch in like basically the same position later.
Yeah.
And there's a couple cool things about that. One, Phil actually notes that in order for this thing to be here, whatever is like following them had to know they were coming this way, and then specifically put Hutch in their path to find. But then when they find it, they don't just like all like, oh, our friend, oh well. Yeah. Like Dom is like breaking down. You hear one of them say, "What am I going to tell his kids or his wife or whatever?" And then Dom doesn't want to leave without burying him, and Luke is now the one in charge after having this big like blow up thing and having to be like, we have to go. Right. We can't bury him. Die. We don't have the means to bury him. We need to leave. We're clearly not safe here. Yeah. We have to move. And so like cover him in sticks, and then they're like, we'll come back for him. And they're like, we don't even know where we are.
Right.
How are we going to come back?
Yeah. It is really, you feel the like desperation and the despair of the characters as it goes on. And I think that was also something like Dom, he has sort of a character arc to him, because when they eventually get sort of held captive by this cult that worships the god. Yeah. And poor Dom has been going through it. They're like beating him, starving him, doing all these terrible things to him, and he's already injured. And there's just kind of a point where it's very clear that he has accepted, I am not going to make it out of this situation alive. And he's right, because he doesn't. Yeah. And he's just telling Luke, he's like, tell my wife that I tried to get back to her. Yep. That's all I need you to do.
It's honestly, when they take Dom away, and then they, like, you hear the sounds of him being, like, tortured or whatever's going on. You don't see any of it, but you hear him screaming in agony. And they bring him back in, and he looks and sounds so defeated. Yeah. And it is heartbreaking because he just explains, he's like, I'm not gonna make it out of this. And for me, in that moment when that happens, I kind of felt like you were a dick earlier. You did not deserve this. Yeah. And also, I do hope you just die quickly because you have had such a horrible time. Yeah. Like, Hutch gets grabbed in the night, ripped out of his tent. We don't see what happens. We hear him screaming in the darkness.
Sounded like it was pretty quick.
But it was pretty quick. And then Phil just gets like...
He also gets yeeted. Yeah. The monster said yoink.
Yeah, they're like,
Phil is mine now.
While Luke is looking at him, he just gets snatched, and we don't even see the monster. It just grabs him, and he drops the flashlight, which is wild. But like, none of them get tortured by like a cult, like Dom does.
Dom does.
And then he gets put on this post, and then like the dream that he has, he sees his wife come out of the woods after hearing these like horrifying stomping sounds, and then when it gets up to his face, I think it does drop the guys. Yeah. But like it picks him up by his head and then just like lifts him and puts him on a tree.
Impales him on that tree.
Oh, it's so brutal.
And it's really sad too, and very, very emotional, because he is having the response as if he's really seeing his wife. He's calling out to her, and he's like so happy and sad and all these emotions to see his wife. But it's so clear, like there's that moment where it kind of morphs and we can see that it's this monster. Yeah. And like that really cemented, because there's been all this play of, nightmares and stuff throughout the movie so far, but that really just kind of showed the depths of like, this thing wants your pain. Like, it doesn't even want your death, it wants your suffering.
Yeah, it wants you to suffer, which is like wild,
really upsetting.
And I think that is like the moment that kind of crystallizes that is exactly what it's doing, that it isn't just killing them, it is doing some horrendous other thing to cause them to suffer. I enjoyed the ending of this. I felt it was really good. I felt it was pretty, like, to me it felt like pretty clear about Luke, triumphing over not only just this monster, but also getting over his
he
grief.
Has this kind of cathartic release at
the end. He gets out of the woods.
He's roaring into the air,
Yep, he's released that from himself. He doesn't blame himself anymore. He's not blaming himself for the his other friends that died in the woods and everything. And he fights too, which is,
he fights hard.
Yeah, he fights really hard. He shoots the Jotun. I think it's called Motor.
Yeah, I think that's its name.
He shoots it with a rifle. He uses an axe against it.
Yep, he's trying everything he can. He's running through the woods. And again, this is where some of that cool cinematography comes in.
That was the coolest shot for me, was exactly what you're going to say, was when he's he looks into the woods, and then the
fluorescent lights just ping on.
Yeah, and they're like going down through the woods,
creating an aisle for him to run.
It was so good.
Yeah,
and like it happens, and I'm seeing it, and I'm like, don't run down that.
Yeah,
don't do that. The monster's down that way. I know you like saw it behind you. He's down there already.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just bringing it back to haunt him at every step of the way. You know, this perceived failure of not protecting his friend. Yeah, I thought the ending was really good as well. Really interesting kind of fight between the two of them, where the Jotun is trying to like force him into a kneeling position in like worship and reverence, and just like keeps pushing him down, and he's refusing to bow, which was really powerful, especially after you have this whole experience of getting to know these characters and their stories and their traumas and their personalities, and seeing him very defiantly standing up for himself was it had a big payoff.
I think it's really cool to see him fighting against just submitting to this thing, both physically, just this thing trying to make him kneel and submit to him, but then also fighting to submit to grief and everything, and just finally overcoming it. It's really, really good. He does make it out.
We see civilization
a car going on a road, so he makes it out of the thing. Though he doesn't end up killing the monster.
No.
It stops at the tree line just as like day is happening, so that's the one part that's like a little unclear.
Is it sunlight? Is
it just confined to the woods?
Forest?
Is it both?
Yeah.
Because, they're in the woods the whole time, and it doesn't seem to attack them during the day, so maybe it just can't do anything during the day, but also it can't leave the woods.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. The point is that he makes it out of it. He overcomes it. And it almost seems like there's like this mutual respect between him and this thing, because it also rears up.
Yeah, the two of them have this exchange where they're both like roaring at each other from their positions, know.
It was very cool.
Yeah. There is one scene that I wanted to talk about, but for me, it's what I thought was the scariest part.
Okay, so
do you have a scariest scene that you wanted to discuss too?
I do, but you do yours.
Okay. So for mine, one little piece that we hadn't discussed already is that with this cult that worships the Jotun, part of the exchange is that they worship it, and then it rewards them with eternal life or immortality.
Yeah.
And so, we already have that floating around, that's a thing. Mm-hmm. And when Luke ends up making his escape, he gets out of his binds, he's running through this cabin trying to figure out a way to, survive this situation, and he ends up going upstairs, and he stumbles into this room. It's almost set up like a church, where there's like pews, and there's this terrifying looking skeleton guy,
some like Lich King sitting on a throne. It was wild in there.
But all these pews are filled with these very emaciated looking corpses. They look like skeletons,
coming off of them.
It's like they're all like they're super gaunt. Like it's basically what you would imagine if you popped open a random coffin for somebody that had been underground for 50 years. Like they did not look well. But he's like walking through this. It's this very tense, weird moment. You're like, what the hell's even going on? Mm-hmm. And then as he's working his way through this area, all of the sudden, one of these things takes a big exhale and starts moving. And like you realize in that moment, these are the followers of this thing, and this is what the immortality means in this world.
It was such a good monkey's paw situation that I truly did not see coming.
Me either.
Because a little bit of context for that, because they build up to that scene. It's not just like a random, he goes upstairs. Mm-hmm. When him and Dom get captured, and they're in that room, it's like, I guess, under where that is.
Yeah.
And they can hear from above, like groaning and moaning and stuff like that. And you're like, what the fuck is going on up there? Yeah. And I don't know if that's where they take Dom. Mm-hmm. It might be.
Yeah.
But you hear some more of that moaning and groaning when Luke finally gets out of his binds. And by the way, he's not being sacrificed because they want him to do this ritual and worship the Jotun motor because of his great pain and everything.
Yeah.
But anyway, he ends up going upstairs and going into that room, and like just before he goes in, you hear some more of that groaning. And when he goes in, it stops, and you're like, what is happening?
Silent.
And when it clicked for me that those people are still alive, that's just what immortality looks. Because all he promises is everlasting life.
Yes.
Not that you're gonna stay young and be able to use it or whatever.
Yep.
So these people have just been like, put away to worship eternally in this like homemade shrine. It's so creepy and weird.
And it's awful. Like they're like zombie skeleton things with like flesh hanging. They look awful, and it's really so alarming. I really thought that was legitimately scary. Like,
it's terrifying.
Like when that thing let out that sound, like it was a jump scare.
Yeah.
And just the implications of it is just really disturbing.
It's terrible.
And
yeah, it's terrible.
So I loved that part. I thought it was a great thing to include. That for me was probably like the scariest / most unsettling scene.
Yeah. I also really like, just to touch on the very ending of that, because the result of it is, I was like, that happens, and he's like gets freaked out, but he's grabbed a torch when he goes to walk in there, because it's pitch black in there otherwise, and he just starts lighting the people on fire, and
they're going down the fuse.
The people are screaming,
but they can't do anything.
But they can't move. They can't do anything. So they're just on fire. It's horrifying.
It's awful to think about. And I also don't even know, like, if you have eternal life, would that kill you?
I think it just means you can't die from like
natural
causes, but you can be killed, because immortality and invincibility are two different things.
That's true.
And people conflate them all the time, but
so they probably are going to die after who knows how long they've been sitting up there.
Yeah. Also, it's got to smell real bad, right?
Yeah.
There's no way they're washing them.
Yeah, no way. And how could you?
How could you? You touch them, their arm breaks off.
If you put a wash rag on Ethel, she's gonna disintegrate.
One of my favorite things about that scene, and it's a little silly, is the guy sitting in like the throne at the end. Hey, who's that guy? I want to know who that guy is. How did he get to be on the throne?
Give me a prequel of that guy.
But B, he's definitely posed.
Yeah.
Like that somebody has posed. He didn't like get locked in one day when he's like a million years old, and that's just how he's gonna be. Somebody went in and carefully posed him in there.
They were like, okay, we have to pick something tasteful yet dominant. Yeah, it was great. I loved that scene.
It was a really, really good scene. My personal scariest scene was one of the first times we get to see the monster. They end up getting in this argument, and Luke takes off his kit, his gear, and he decides, I'm gonna go up to that ridge up there, because they can see sunlight over the ridge. And they haven't been going the direction Hutch has been saying they should go to get out of the woods. Dom has been wanting to follow this random path that he saw in there, because a path means civilization.
Yep.
He's kind of right.
He is. Just not all civilization is good.
Is good.
Yeah.
But so Luke decides, I'm going to go up to this ridge and I'm going to go see what I can see. So he goes up there, and when he gets to the top, the woods that they're in, which is like kind of classic pine trees, what you imagine for that. He gets up there and he sees the woods don't stop, which is already kind of heartbreaking, because that's the direction they were told they should go, but it doesn't look like it ends. But it turns into a weird, just like line almost.
Yeah. It almost looks like if you've ever driven past like a tree farm where the trees are like weirdly perfectly placed.
Almost, like, and the trees are different too. They're like these kind of maple trees, and that like it's
skinny,
very skinny and everything like that. And he decides to kind of walk into that a little bit more, and then he stops and he's just looking, and the camera is placed and focusing on this one tree in like the middle of the frame, and it's cutting back to Luke's face, and I'm like, what is going on with this? And then it holds on it for just a little bit longer, and you see towards higher up than where anybody should be able to put a hand, you see what looks like, are those fingers? And then you see them curl back around the tree, and I was like, what is that? I was watching the movie with you, and literally I was like, what is that? What is that thing? Because like I didn't know what it was. We had not seen what this thing is yet.
It's such a good little taste.
It was so good, and that's the only thing you see.
Yes, it's like so nothing big happens after that.
He runs back down the hill, and he's like, "There's something up there."
And they're like, "You're high."
Yeah, it's probably bears or something stupid.
Yeah, they don't know. I loved that too.
That was so good.
Genuinely so creepy, because it's not even really a jump scare.
No.
It's like, and I love that type of scare in a movie where they like show you something and you're not sure if something's actually there, or if, because you know you're watching a horror movie, if you're putting something there, you're like, is that a hand, or is that just the natural, a little knot in the tree?
I remember I locked onto what I was like, those could be fingers, and I started in my brain, I was like, they're probably not, though, because they're not moving, and then I started to see one move and I was like, no, it's a hand.
Oh, why?
It was horrifying.
Yeah, that was a great scare. Loved it.
There was that one, and then there's a little bit later on when they're still like hiking, and there's a shot of them like Kevin in profile going like up a hill, and then in the distance it holds the shot for a little bit longer, and then you see a really big, well, it just looks kind of like a big elk or a moose or something in the background like move, but like you couldn't see it before because it was just perfectly motionless, and I was
creepy.
Like, oh no. This thing's everywhere and watching them all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is what's so effective about the movie is that, and I guess it makes sense as you learn more and you learn that it's this god, you know, it's not just a random beast, but it does really seem like it is an extension of the forest, or the forest is an extension of it. And so it's very oppressive. It's like there's no safe zone.
No.
You can't get to somewhere where you're like, can't touch me here, you know, you are in its
I mean, even the
domain.
first night in the woods when they find the cabin, which they think is, you know, abandoned, they find like weird runes, and upstairs Phil finds that effigy that doesn't have a head and like antlers for hands and stuff. Like, it's really weird, but that's when they have the nightmares,
right?
So like
he's
already messing with them, you know, before any of this, so there really is no safe haven from this thing.
You got to get out.
Man, it was really good.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Was there anything else you wanted to discuss? I thought maybe we could talk about our ratings.
Clearly we both really liked it.
Yeah. I give it a 1.
It's a 1.
And also the new scale.
Oh, yeah. So previously we had been doing things on a 5-star scale, I think, because you and I both use Letterboxd. And
that's a 5-star scale.
And a lot of other things are 5-star scales. But we're going to, going forward, use a 10-star scale. Just because you and I talked about it. There's a lot of horror movies, and I feel it's kind of a bigger range. Mm-hmm. It all can equal out, but it's just easier to be like, this is a 7.5 and this is a 7.3 and like what that means and everything.
We can get a little bit more granular.
Yeah, and I like doing that. So we're going to do things on a 10 scale from now on. But for me, I think the movie is like a 7.5, right in there.
That's just about what I was thinking, like a 7.5.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I would definitely watch it again.
Yeah.
It was genuinely scary at parts. It was emotional at parts. It was also like kind of funny at parts.
Yeah, there's some funny parts. Oh man, the funniest part of the entire movie.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to
say. When Luke's doing his grand escape, after he comes down from where he's burning the people up in the room there's been this old woman that's been kind of like walking around, kind of the matriarch of the
ringleader.
And she's just at the bottom of the stairs when he goes down there, and he has this moment where he like squares up with her really quick, and he's like kind of taken aback, and then he just punches her right in the face, and she drops. There's no fight, nothing.
She's so tiny. She's like 4'11", 80 pounds soaking wet. She's so small and old, and he just
all of this action is happening, and he just punches her right in the face, and I'm just like, man, this movie gets it.
Yeah,
he's doing everything he's got to survive. He's just like, whatever, I'll take out an old lady. I don't care.
So maybe we throw in an extra 0.1 for the old
lady.
It's a 10 punch. Now. Yeah, which equals a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel totally comfortable giving it a 7.5. It was really good. I think if you haven't seen it, you should definitely try to check it out if you've got a Netflix subscription. Yeah. It's worth a watch.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really, really good movie. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap up.
As always, if you want to reach out to us with your own suggestions, maybe they'll get featured on the show. You can reach out to us on pretty much any social media thing at First Fright Pod.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, Twitter, Instagram, X, whatever you want to call it.
We also have a Facebook page now.
Yes, we got a Facebook page.
Love It First Fright.
Yeah, so you can interact with us on there. We are on anywhere you can get podcasts, I believe is
pretty much
correct.
Yeah.
And if you are listening to the show and you want to leave a rating or comment, every platform's different. If you can leave a rating, please do. If you can leave a comment, please do. If you can't leave a comment but you want to comment about the show, things you like, don't like, whatever, feel free to email us.
Yeah, it's at firstfrightpod@gmail.com.
Yep.
Is our email.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, reach out. We're always checking, what we got in the inbox there.
And, keep your ear to the ground because the next episode is going to be coming at you soon.
Yeah.
And we are doing Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, we're going back in time.
Yeah.
The George A. Romero.
I'm excited.
Classic.
Yeah, this is a great one. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I can't wait to rewatch.
I think the only time I've seen it is when my mom showed it to me when I was pretty young.
Oh, yeah?
It's from what I remember, I really liked it.
Yeah.
It's definitely an old horror movie.
It is,
if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
But
I think it holds up.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun.
Yeah.
So find that where you can find it if you want to watch it before the episode comes out, and if not, well, then we'll see you on that one.
Anyway. But yeah, thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And again, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Scare well, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.